let's start back on the Thursday night previous where the Rams went up to San Francisco. And in this one, the Rams, I picked the 49ers to win this one. Unfortunately for them, the week prior, they blew out the Bears and looked, in this case, more like the Bears than that 49ers team. And so the Rams went in. Not a high-scoring game, but certainly the Rams came out on top. And to make matters worse, San Francisco probably ended their season with no playoff hopes. The Rams got themselves back into first place in a tie with Seattle. And I guess more importantly for the San Francisco 49ers, Devondre Campbell, linebacker, walks out of the game and quits the game on his teammates and organization, and just an overall bad look. Really didn't see that one coming, but congratulations and credit to the Rams for coming up and playing a game which they had to win and then did. Now let's switch on to Sunday's games, where the game of the week, I think, was the Bills going to the Lions, in which, again, I had the Lions tabbed as the best team in football, thinking there's no way they're going to lose. In fact, they're going to win decisively against the Bills, and it just the opposite happened. The Bills come in. Josh Allen puts up, again, another Josh Allen performance where himself accounts for over 400 yards of offense and 4 touchdowns. And then it was just a blowout early. And the Rams, although they came on late, it never really was a game. So the Bills won 48-42. And here again, I think now Josh Allen, coupled with the week he had before, then this game, and coupled with the Saquon Barkley really game, which he didn't do much, I think Josh Allen staked his claim triumphantly as now the league MVP. Moving on to the Bucs taking on the Chargers, a game which I went to. Again, the Chargers, needed to win this game to stay even with the Broncos, and the Chargers were dominated on both sides of the ball. In fact, Baker Mayfield, not Justin Herbert, looked like the game MVP, and accounted for, he looked flawless. I mean, I think he had one interception, but other than that, he was in complete control of that game. And then defensively, the Chargers had no answers, none. And so that they, at this point, after that game, even though they both have identical records now at 8-6, they couldn't look more opposite in terms of where they're going. We've got the Packers taking on Seattle in Seattle, in which I thought Seattle, okay, this is where, they're in first place. This is where they start to make their move down the stretch. Unfortunately for them, it was the Packers that came in and took care of business in Seattle. Jordan Love looked flawless. The combination, again, of Tucker Kraft, the tight end, and Josh Jacobs at running back, who is powerful, elusive, explosive, and then Romeo Dobbs and Jaden Reed at receiver are it's a great combination. And with Matt LaFleur as the play caller and head coach, they're as good as anybody on offense. You've got the Eagles going into Pittsburgh on a week in which, following the last game, A.J. Brown looks befuddled as to why he's not the top guy on the game plan in the game which they win. Now he voices his opinion, becomes the big part of the offense. He and Devonta Smith go for over 100 yards and both have a receiving touchdown, whereas Saquon Barkley was relegated to an ineffective game. And this is probably where the MVP race just took a turn, where Saquon Barkley, if he had a chance, now doesn't, I don't think. And we'll see how that shakes out once the season's over as a team within the Eagles locker room. But for now, the Eagles are continuing on their, 10-game win streak now, and an impressive win against the Steelers, which I would say the star of that game wasn't even either offense. It was the Eagles' defense that shut down Pittsburgh's, resurgent offense to under 200 yards total offense. And if there was a game ball to go out, then I would give it to the Eagles' defense. All right, so now on to Sunday's games. We've got a few intriguing matchups coming up, none of which probably for the first week all year, are going to involve either the Lions or the Bears. They're both coming off a loss, which you can't say very often this year either, mostly because of the Lions. And so we'll get kicked off here with the Texans going to the Chiefs. And coming into this game, will Mahomes play or won't he? Because he suffered a high ankle sprain in last week's game against Cleveland. I personally think he'll play. And the Chargers at 13-1 have had that horseshoe magic in every late game, or every game this season, late in the game, that have resulted in all but one win. And have resulted in wins except for one game, and that was against the Bills. And I do think the Texans, although they did coming off a win last week against Miami, in which they closed them out very well. They've won 2 in a row now. I think Kansas City, playing at home, and as they've done all year, have found ways to win games late. So I'll give this one to Kansas City. We've got a big showdown coming up in Baltimore with the Steelers coming off a disastrous loss in the Pennsylvania showdown between them and the Eagles, going to now Baltimore, which is also in the division and going to be very tough. But I think that the Steelers' offense really gets back on track because Baltimore's defense has been shaky all season, especially in the secondary and pass coverage. And so I think Russell Wilson and that passing game of the Steelers, revived passing game, will get back on track. And obviously their defense is going to show up strong again. And so I think Pittsburgh comes out of this one with a win. And then we've got another NFC East showdown, great one, with the 12-2 Eagles going to Washington to play the Commanders. You got the Eagles, who are currently this season's probably best NFC team. And then you've got probably the best first half Cinderella story of the year in the Washington Commanders. But I think, Philadelphia goes into Washington, probably takes care of business. And I think we'll see a much bigger dose in the game plan this week of Saquon Barkley, who was all but forgotten last week against the Steelers. I think it's the Commanders this week. Philly is the more complete team, top to bottom, and that includes the coaching staff. And so I think that Philadelphia will come out of this one with another win. The Vikings going to Seattle to play the Seahawks. So I'm going to own up to the fact that I was completely wrong thinking the Bears had any kind of a chance last week going to Minnesota. They were closed out early in that one. As I was wrong also with the Packers going to Seattle, thinking the Packers were going to get back on that plane having got beaten, which they didn't. And so I think you've got two teams here. The Vikings are clearly, from front to back, or at least the beginning to the end of the season, the most complete Cinderella story. I know I mentioned the Commanders a little while ago, but nobody saw the Vikings coming. And with or without, they got Sam Darnold has resurrected his career, but then the coaching staff has done a phenomenal job, and they've got players everywhere that have stepped up and done well and closed out games. But then you've also got, the Seattle Seahawks that have surprised a lot of people, myself included, but they've got Geno Smith coming off last week's injury. And I think they're in struggle mode right now, this time of year, even if they're at home. And so I do think that the Vikings will go in, take care of business, raise their record now to 13-2 after this game. And once again, I think the Vikings are going to finish out this season on a very strong note.